saying the $6.5 billion price tag is just too much. Remember President Bush's prescription drug bill cost $180 billion. His wars in Iraq and Afghanistan cost over $800 billion. And his tax cuts cost $1.8 trillion. What do they all have in common? None of them had offset cuts. And guess who voted for those very policies? The same House Republicans now demanding offsets. Speaker John Boehner, Majority Leader Eric Cantor, and Congressman Paul Ryan. And what do they all have in common? None of them demanded offsetting cuts. So what's the excuse? They don't have one. It's a heartless ideology that puts politics ahead of people. And that's why President Obama and Democrats are ready to fight for fairness. Bring in the heat in the dead of winter. Joining me now is Congressman Jim McDermott, Democrat of Washington, and MSNBC's Abby Huntsman. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here. Thanks, Rev.
Congressman, let me go to you first. Speaker Boehner wants to offset the cost of unemployment aid, even though he voted for Bush policies without any spending cuts. What's your response?
Well, you don't expect him to be honest and even-handed. This is about an attack on the poor. Now, one of the myths, Al, that they're operating under is that they say people sit at home and don't go out and look for a job. But in the last 5 years, the number of college graduates who are working for minimum wage jobs has doubled. That means that people who went to college, did everything right, lost their job, and have been looking and looking and looking, finally have taken a job that is a minimum wage job. And there are 3 people out there looking for every job that comes available. So the myth that these people are not trying is simply wrong. And in 7-degree below zero weather, to say to somebody, we're not going to give you any money for your oil, or no money for your rent, or no money to feed your kids, is simply inhuman.
Well,
it is the worst kind of society.
Saying it when you have, as the lady that spoke with the president today in the East Room of the White House, where she's talking about sleeping in her overcoat. And then, Abby, the president himself addressed the same issue that Congressman McDermott said. This whole thing of it's bad enough that I'm unemployed, even worse, you're going to take my unemployment coverage, but now you call me lazy? Listen to what the president said.
That really sells the American people short. I can't name a time where I met an American who would rather have an unemployment check than the pride of having a job. The long-term unemployed are not lazy. They're not lacking in motivation. They're coping with the aftermath of the worst economic crisis in generations.
Now, Abby, let me ask you a question. I mean, you're a moderate Republican, and I'm a moderate Democrat by my own definition.
Self-definition there.
Right. Do you honestly believe that the right-wingers that are saying that the long-term unemployed are lazy really believe that, or is this just to try to get the base up? I mean, do they honestly believe this?
It's all ideological. That's my personal opinion. I mean, what we're talking about is at the heart of what it means to be an American. You know, this is Americans want a job. They are motivated. They want to work. They want a purpose and a passion in life. And I think this represents, we're in a new year now, and this represents for Republicans one of many opportunities where they can show that they are actually thinking about reforming the platform, a platform that speaks to a broader group of people. And this one in particular, unemployment benefits, is one that women in particular care a lot about. Minority groups care a lot about it. And it's one, in my mind, we should not even be debating at this moment in time. You look at the reality of our economic situation, right? Unemployment is higher than it's been since the Great Depression. So it's really hard to look at the situation and say we don't have the jobs that we need to have right now. We don't have the opportunity. We don't have the growth. And look at that and say, let's just let this go on and let these people live without having, you know, the jobs that they need. I think the focus should be growing the economy? How do we help people develop the skill sets they need to get a job?
And not disparage the people, but there's something Congressman Abbey said. She talked about what the Republicans ought to be addressing, and she mentioned the concern of women. I remember that there were talking points and things that were put out by the Republican Party on how to try to deal with women, if you remember that, how to talk to women. Well, let me tell you something that happened tonight. This is amazing, a very, very new development. The Washington Post obtained a memo that House Republican leaders sent to their rank-and-file members. It tells them how to talk about unemployment. Reminds us how the folder on how to talk to women. It tells them, according to the Post, the memo reminds GOP lawmakers to be empathetic towards the unemployed, to remember that it's a personal crisis for individuals and families, and to always say they'll give proper consideration to an extension if there are spending cuts. So be nice, but no spending cuts. We're not moving forward, Congressman, but say it nicely.
We've offered them lots of spending cuts. We could take away subsidies to the oil industry. There are all kinds of tax loopholes we could get $6.5 billion. The Republicans do not want to give anything in the way of a social safety net. They want everybody to be out there on their own with no help from the government. That's the Koch brothers' whole theory of what they're energizing this bunch of the Tea Party to do. And they simply they're not honest when they say we haven't offered ways to make cuts. Let's cut the oil industry $6.5 billion. Have they made enough money in the last 10 years? You bet they have. They could easily give it, and we could feed the people in this country that need food, that need housing. We could take care of them. But
Abby, the fact of the matter is, I mean, let's talk reality. The deficit has been steadily falling for years now. I mean, this year, it's projected to be less than half of what it was in 2011. So when they're talking about spending cuts, we're already going down in terms of the deficit. And they never demanded spending cuts for the litany of things that I named that President Bush went ahead and spent money on.
Well, speaking of President Bush, I mean, I think what we're seeing here, and as we've talked about over the last year, is really a shift in the agenda for the GOP, which is far different even from the Bush days, who, if you remember back in 2002, increased unemployment benefits. And at that point in 2002, unemployment was at 6%, I think it had gotten to. And now, obviously, it's much higher than that. So we're looking at a very different Republican Party, even from 2002. I think we can all say that the economy could move faster than it's moving today, but we're not even able to have that debate around how we get the engines of jobs moving faster, because we can't even get past this ideological debate about extending unemployment benefits. I think that is the biggest challenge that we face today.
Congressman Jim McDermott and Abby Huntsman, thank you both for your time. I agree with both of you. We need more Huntsman Republicans. Abby, not John. I'm not endorsing your father. And be sure to catch Abby on the Cycle weekdays right here at 3 p.m. Coming up, day one for the House Republicans. They're back in Washington with a plan.